right now we're seeing cancer rates in pets skyrocket.
We had a 2-year-old dog with cancer.
There's so many chemicals right now being put unnecessarily into our pets. I know people are concerned about fleas, ticks, parasites. We're giving our pets these things with good intentions ourselves, and yet pets are dropping dead. They're dying before they even get cancer.
We've moved into a corporate type of veterinary medicine where before it was bring your pet to the vet when they were sick and the vet would treat them. And now it's a schedule. How often can we get that pet into the vet?
Some years ago, they start this heartworm medication. The animals were dropping dead, like literally bleeding out. This is about to happen again right now with flea and tick.
Now we're about to see something even more catastrophic, and we need pet parents to be awake. One day I had 3 exam rooms, all with dogs in those 3 at the exact same time, not in a day, at the exact same time, all having seizures from that particular flea and tick medicine. And so now we're about to release it as an injectable.
Okay, what do I do about heartworm? And what do we do about fleas and ticks? Your pets are at great risk right now. Listen, this episode, really important one, because we're going to talk about what's causing these unnecessary deaths and illnesses, cancer, all of it in your pets right now. It's going to shock you. I cannot wait to introduce you, Dr. Natalie Lenior Blackman. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I tell you, this is a topic that they're going to be shocked when they hear some of these things that are causing their pets to literally die. Because I asked you the question, you know, right now we're seeing cancer rates in pets skyrocket. You're saying, okay, the problem is now they're dying before they even get cancer. That's how early pets are dying. And it's things that they can avoid and not give their pets that we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about flea and tick stuff. We're going to talk about heartworm. We're going to talk about, you know, vaccines, all of it. We're going to separate the myths from the reality, what you could do, what you cannot do, what to feed your dog. All this, can't wait. You're going to want to share the show.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I discovered you. I think you started following me.
I did.
And, you know, because of my detox stuff, and you realized the need to detox dogs and pets. We're going to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
And we saw each other in Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, my wife had to be here on this show because her passion is animals, pets. And a lot of what we do for our dogs, it's her, you know, really. She does a lot more of this research than me. Hashtag around that. So,
well, and because obviously of how well we took care of Frundle and Remy and how they met their fate was just so disturbing. Yeah, so that's probably great to hear that story too. It really catapulted me into the passionate acts on topic.
Well, listen, we're going to get into everything I just said, right? Because I so want everyone to know what we know. And I think if they love their pets, care about their pets, or, you know, have family members that love pets and have pets, this show's really, really important. There's so many chemicals right now being put unnecessarily into our pets. And I'm going to say maybe with good intentions. I don't even know, right? But it's definitely sold that way, right, to prevent fleas and ticks, to prevent heartworm, you know, different diseases. And yeah, we're giving our pets these things, you know, with good intentions ourselves, and yet pets are dropping dead.
Yes. And I just had a client that came in recently and said her son came to her, similar to your situation. They said, Mom, you take the best care of our pets that I've ever met anyone take care of pets. And you do everything the vet says, and yet they always die early. And that woke her up. And she came to our office and wanted to know what she was doing wrong. And what she was doing wrong is doing the typical allopathic protocol. And so that's where our problem is, right? And so this has become, we've moved into a corporate type of veterinary medicine where before it was bring your pet to the vet when they were sick and the vet would treat them. And now it's a schedule. How often can we get that pet into the vet? Right?
By the way, this sounds familiar with children.
I guess.
We never took our kids to as well baby.
Not one.
Right? Yeah. I mean, my wife would be like, hell no. Yeah, no, because baby visits became a reason to make it.
Yes.
Right. And listen, I will tell you, there's time of place, right? But baby visits, you leave with medications, right? And that is the number one killer factor. In order to get our kids to start on that, well, same thing's happening.
Things we don't need someone to tell us our kids or our pets are thriving.
Right.
It's just an excuse.
Right. That's exactly, it actually is a training method to have you to start coming in regularly. So that's exactly what people.
Okay, by the way, they do the same thing with cars, right? Look, take your car in for a checkup. And when they come into the cars, and dealerships know that if we get someone to come in for an oil change, a maintenance thing, right? We just found here brake pads are $5. No, and then some of that stacks up, and then instead of being the $20, $30 oil change, it ends up to be $2,000 later. So okay, so this strategy is happening with vets. Ever. Okay, I'm going to back out because we're going to discuss all this.
Where are you from?
Did I?
Okay, I'm in the Southeast in Birmingham, Alabama.
And I started my own holistic practice about 12 years ago with my husband, and we did that seeing a need for the pets with all of these issues. And in fact, I actually really went into that field when I found out about those oral flea and tick meds and what they were doing. Because I was originally an emergency critical care vet for almost, let's say, 8 to 10 years. I did a little bit of relief in between that in day practice. But when I saw these flea and tick meds and what they were doing to pets, when I saw the liver values and the numbers that were coming up on their blood work, I knew we were about to run into a mess. And that was 12 years ago.
Wow.
And so now we're about to see something even more catastrophic. And we need pet parents to be awake and to understand that the risk to benefit ratio can be so, right? So, yeah, that's how I got into just doing holistic medicine.
Yeah.
And not do it just in a rabbit.
Some years ago, they started this Heartworm medication. And it was out of convenience. One shot, don't have to do anything for a year, right? And animals were dropping dead, like literally bleeding out. I mean, tell us that, because this is about to happen again right now with flea and tick.
Right.
Okay, so talk about the Heartworm, and then we'll talk about the flea and tick protection.
Absolutely. It was in 2002. I was in my second year of clinicals in Auburn, and we started having pets coming into the veterinary hospital bleeding out. They were bleeding out from orifices externally, but they were also bleeding out internally, and that's called autoimmune hemolytic anemia. And then they had immune-mediated thrombocytopenia. And they would come in, some of them were coming in and dying before they got to the clinic. Some of them would get there and die. Some of them would make it 2 days and then pass away. Very few made it through this. And the school at that time said, we want you guys to put together and see what these dogs had in common, because this was too, unusual for this many to come in. And we were able to determine that there was a new injectable heartworm medication that lasted for 6 months. Now that one lasts for 12 months, but it lasted for 6 months at this time. And when we reported it, this is back before, big pharma had their hands into a lot of the colleges, and we would report it and they would say, did it happen within 24 hours? We'd say, well, no, it was 36 hours.
The seizures happening with vaccines is short. Doesn't happen within 24 hours. It's not associated.
So not associated. And that's called type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. But you have a type 2 and a type 3 that are extremely common with an injectable like that, right? And so they would not take any responsibility for the deaths of these dogs. And that stayed on the market for 5 years. And I went directly into emergency medicine right out of veterinary school. And I can't tell you how many dogs I saw with, IMHA, shitty. It was very stressful. And it finally got pulled from the market. It's reformulated. It's been back on the market now for probably 6 years. But this new chemical that is a flea and tick medicine is just now coming out on the market. It's a 12-month injection.
So very convenient.
Very convenient.
It was going to be sold this.
What? Yeah.
Well, should you call away who doesn't want to expose the company?
Yeah, the kind they die. That's just. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So they'll be sold without getting yourself in trouble. This is going to be sold as very convenient. So look out for this. And it's going to be sold, hey, for a year, you don't have to worry about fleas and ticks. It's just this one injection.
One injection for once a year. And the tablet that they have right now is a 3-month tablet. Those are the patients that I see the most. For when I started saying at my practice, I no longer treat diseases, I treat side effects. because these dogs are coming in with tremors, with seizures. Their guts literally stop working.
What's the one that most people are using now? The 3-month pill
The 3-month pill.
causing microbiome.
So shopping. This is nice. And your nervous system falls. So the gut literally shuts down. And one day in my practice, I had 3 exam rooms, all with dogs in those 3 at the exact same time, not in a day, at the exact same time, all having seizures from that particular flea and tick medicine. And so now we're about to release it as an injectable. I mean, I tell people, do you want
Directly into the bloodstream.
directly into the bloodstream where it has to bind to a protein for it to stay there, which means the immune system eventually turns against that protein. And so I tell people, do you want a live pet or do you want a convenient, system? I mean, there's that much of a delineation between the two.
Is this out yet at all?
It is just now.
Just now. So this show is so timely.
Oh, unbelievable, sorry. Unbelievable.
But I mean, so back up. This, I think most of our friends are probably using the 3-month flea and tick because we're asked about it all the time. And I didn't know any.
Is that next scar? What is on 3 months?
Well, yeah, she's probably trying to just stick you.
There's only one right.
Yeah.
What? Going to use one.
Yeah. Gotta use this extra one.
And so that causes seizures. That they all cause seizures. That one causes them the most, and it's the Prevecto, which is now broken into the injection. Same chemical.
I mean, so when people ask me, should I do my pet this? I'm like, no.
How?
No way. Yeah. No. But again, I'm not first. I didn't know that these pets were having seizures and all this, all these problems. I just do instinctively. That's not smart, right? So, this is causing these immediate deaths. I mean, obviously the increase in cancer has gone through the roof at pets. And we'll talk about, I want to hear your reasons why you think that's the case. So we'll be as careful as we can without getting you in trouble. That's how crazy this is. It's that insane. But I know what people are thinking right now. Okay, what do I do about heartworm? Because we blew that out of the water. And what do we do on fleas and ticks? Naturally that they can do, because that's what they want.
Well, I think it depends on your area, right? And so you have to look at, again, the risk to benefit ratio. Like, are you in a place where the risk is great enough? Like, is your pet really at risk for heartworm? Are they really at risk for fleas and ticks?
What puts them at risk?
Yeah, what puts them at risk? And that's your location, right? Your locale. So where I am in the South, it is a huge risk. And so because it's humid. And so we have high mosquito population. And so mosquitoes actually carry heartworm. But what people don't understand is there's a very specific life cycle to that heartworm through a life cycle of the mosquito. So it actually has to live within a mosquito for 14 days if they pick a microfilariae from an infected animal. And then it has to live in that same mosquito for 14 days above 67 degrees. The mosquito cannot die. And then it actually has to bite another dog. And do you see how complicated that is like a chance? So the chances are low, even in an area like where I am, where we do have a lot of mosquitoes. And it also comes back to how we're taking care of our pets, right? Pets, back when we used to deal with a lot of heartworm issues, they were kept outside. Right. They were either tethered or in kennels outdoors. Right. So they're exposed to a lot of the same mosquito population. And in that mosquito population would go to the neighbor's dog and back and forth. Right. Now pets are kept inside. They're not seeing the same mosquito population, right? And so the risk of heartworm is much lower, although the veterinary community will not agree with me on that. But the dogs getting heartworm, do you want to know the ones that get heartworm?
Yeah.
Are the ones that are on legumables. They come to me to ask for help to get their pets to do what we call the slow kill method for heartworm, because there is a method to kill heartworms that they do have them. Mm-hmm. And so we do a slow kill method, and we actually have to not only detox them, but we have to restore gut health, because we've got to bring the immune system back up, because the immune system is actually able to take care of microfilaria on its own. Yeah. You don't even have to get fight fish.
So so your answer is you don't have to give anything.
No.
It will be, if they're healthy, they're going to resolve.
Absolutely.
But if they're not healthy, you have a better way of treating it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what they need to ask their vet.
And when is that? Holistically. Well,
So I was supposed to say,
You said slow kills.
well, that's it. If they're heartworm positive, right? There's a slow kill method. So they actually, you don't have to get what's called the imidacide. And the imidacide is a very strong injection. So there's a lot of fear around heartburn. They say, oh, I don't want my boys to get it because they'll have to get the heartworm treatment because the heartworm treatment originally killed dogs pretty regularly. Now the heartworm treatment isn't that deadly, but isn't it for your pet? So like you're not, right? You don't want your pet to go through that. But there's a simple method. And guess what? It has to do with gets it.
So I guess it shouldn't. I took two things away from that. Number one, most dogs aren't even at risk today with the way it's more complicated than they make it sound being bit by this mosquito. Number two, if your dog does get it, there's a slow ivermectin, slow kill treatment that is better and it's not as deadly as everyone thinks. And number three, if your dog's healthy, it doesn't matter anyway. It's self-limiting.
It's self-limiting, and there's actually a veterinarian that wrote a book called "Vile Dogs Don't Give Up Worms," and he was the whole book was based on raw-fed dogs and how raw-fed. Yeah, raw-fed dogs are not at risk of getting heartworms. They're also not flea gnats. So I tell my clients, slice them out, inside out, and yes, you carry them from the inside. The aphid parasites are nutrients in them. And if we're putting chemicals in their body all the time, they've got an acidic type blood. So fleas actually would smell the CO2 in their bloodstream. So they're more attracted to a pet that has these chemicals in their bloodstream. Isn't that wild? But your bloodstream kills them. And this is worth mentioning. I read about Lyme in dogs. Yes. And it's this as a co-infection. Yes. And it's not like your dog, but my dogs wouldn't get Lyme. Right, because they don't have the other complications.
Well, I mean, when we blood tested two of ours, they has Lyme. I guess about six. They had IgG.
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, the vet wanted to treat him for Lyme, and I said, "Or is it IgM or IgG?" Because I know people, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's different in pets, or what do I know? But he's like, "Well, that's a good question." I said, "Well, did you test that?" No. I'm like, can you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's another $50. I'm like, I'll test it. Came back IgG.
And by the way,
if my dog had an exposure, but didn't make it.
Sir, that's an exposure. Okay, I was going to say in Mexico, because the other way Lyme can become positive is if they've been vaccinated for it at some point, because it is commonly slipped in vaccine. And also now quite on it that my body dealt with it.
I have about the box for Lyme.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah. And you guys are thriving, right? And so I think it's a lot of removing the fear from so many things and the myths through knowledge. The knowledge, absolutely. So if we know more, we can do better. I say it. And so that's what we really try to encourage with our clients is the more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Well, in the flea and tick thing, I have to say, dogs never have fleas.
We had 4 now. Yeah. Fleas.
Man, you get $4 with no fleas, so I'm full of fleas. It's because we feed them raw.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah, so I have to bother to say, okay, well, how do we prevent fleas? I think just we don't want them anyway, right? But raw feeders, absolutely seem like they don't get fleas and ticks.
They don't. Again, it comes back to your gut health, right? So 70% of the immune system's in the gut. If they have a healthy gut, they're going to be healthy. I have a strong immune system. Fleas aren't attracted to. Parasites are attracted to unhealthy organisms.
Same.
What's your also say the behind? Yes, I know. And so it's like you just have to help people understand you're making them sicker by following this traditional corporate, now corporate allopathic protocol, and the pets are not thriving anymore. They're we can have the same conversation and just take out or pet and put in. I mean, it's seriously, it's same conversation. And it's really disheartening. Do you know how most people find me? Their child has been vaccine damaged. I have so many mothers that'll find me and sometimes it takes some years, but it clicks that about I have vaccine damaged child. I stopped vaccinating them. Why am I vaccinating my dog? You have my cat, and then they'll make an appointment at my clinics, and they actually come in very aggressive because they think even me
It's the attack as a ballistic reaction. It's still going to, because that's not in hurry to still push the core. And I always sit down with him and say, no, this isn't your decision. Like, we want to educate you. And then in our clinic, we do titer testing. And so that way, that's the best test you can have, because it shows the antibody level. And I can say this all day long. I've never seen an adult dog that needed a vaccine.
Yeah, and if people hear that word being blipped out, it's because on certain social media pages like YouTube, there's certain words you can't say without getting flagged. So if you hear a word being, it's most likely the beef word there.
And more often mention the C, and that one did beeped out to the big C. So I'm saying that because I get texts all the time. What are the words being bleeped out?
That's if they misspelled them.
Yeah. So,
We're talking about V. The big V is what we're talking about. They get past.
let's go into that subject. You're very passionate about it. As careful as we can. I don't want to get you in trouble, and I don't want to get shatterback. Sure, sucks. But I'll say my beliefs. And we had 2 dogs. You know about this because I called you immediately. There's a big C in dogs that's going through the roof right now. Hemangiosarcoma.
Yes.
And I had my last 2 dogs die from it. When I was in Mexico, I did some digging, and I found a direct link in studies that showed that the big RB, how would I say that? The one that's mandatory. It's the only big V that's mandatory in dogs. Oh yes, that begins with an R. Is our trimester begin to shut down? And so is linked. Directly linked. Yes. And I come back here because I was telling.
Well, dog number 2.
Yeah.
The dog number 2 collapsed, right? And Freddle, he collapsed, and we took him to the vet.
And that's kind of what happens with this hemangiosarcoma. The dog just collapsed.
They just had sarcomic sarcoma for Hemangiosarcoma. And then 6 months later, we were in the States, and Remy collapsed his father 6 months later.
Yes.
And they were both vaccinated on the same day. Oh, why are yours?
And they both did poorly.
Wow. And they both had vaccine reactions. Or if did not, Freddle was okay. Ronnie didn't move for 3 days. Okay, so that would be when I would.
In other ways, our pet was privy to this and
holistic
micro-dosed and Lex.
Okay.
Because, we weren't going to give a small dog the same as we give a great gamer. They do, but I don't know. So she was privy to this, and she was privy to these connections, and so
she did the dose of after.
Yeah, she did the nice note after.
She reassured us that all would be absolutely fine. Was the way you do it to protect that. And I was telling someone today, I said, I still haven't gone back to see her because I just don't want to disappoint God in my reaction when I confront her, but I feel she needs to know. But I'm just emotionally, we still cry for our talk. So we went to like our kid.
I called you during that second.
And you're at to me, Remy. Yeah. So, honestly, the reason why I became I wanted to be a vet from story, but when I was 12, my own dog died of hemangiosarcoma. So this was in the 80s. So well, and I put that as the top of my list that I wanted to help figure out how to prevent it. And the only preventions are what we're talking about right now. And also is the reason why I got into acupuncture, because then you'll understand this, lymphatics, moving the lymph system, right? Because this is a cancer that arises out of the blood. So it's actually the blood vessels. It's the cells that line the blood vessels that cause this particular type of cancer. And when you talk about the V that is contributed to that, in Chinese medicine, we say anytime you give a V, it goes into the Zhui level, which is the blood level. So it sets off a dynamite reaction into the bloodstream. So what is the bloodstream going to do, right? It's going to react. It's going to have a response. It's going to have inflammation. Yeah. And so do we turn on oncogenes at that time?
No. That's what happened.
I
want to say this before I forget. I came back to the States, and I couldn't find those studies.
No, I believe that.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
I had to call my friend who's in the medical field there, and he had to pull it up for me and send you.
Well, they're good. I mean, it was there would be a reception. See, I mean, I was like, this is amazing. I love that you had that for me. I'll tell you too. Yeah, yeah, and I shared that now with people because like all I did is I say obviously there's articles, and there I mean there was a PubMed study I believe there was an NIH and there were a couple of people.
Will not pull them up.
Yeah, my here, yeah, elaborate. That's what I can access. When Jewel first came out, we can't access anymore. And I've saved a bunch of those, thank goodness, but not knowing it was going to be, hidden information. Yeah, right. So
Yeah, it's the sad reality. I think a lot of people out here, if they'd never heard of hemangiosarcoma, yes, it's more prevalent in certain breeds, right? But same thing with humans. We have certain weaknesses. All of us do, genetic weaknesses. However, that's the gun pointing at our head. But the big V there was the trigger or the thing that pulls the trigger.
well, that goes back to genetics versus epigenetics. So we teach that at our clinic all the time. So you may have a gene that may make you more sensitive to this type of cancer, but we don't want to turn it on.
Right.
I mean, who wants to turn on an epigenetic?
That's pulling the trigger.
That's pulling the trigger right there. And so, yes, it all goes back to some dogs are more prone to it, but But I was seeing hemangiosarcoma in pretty much every breed. And yes, it's one of
And that's the other lie too, right? It is in every breed. It's skyrocketing.
yes.
Yeah. How many of you? If I ask how I lost my dog, cancer. Oh, is it hemangiosarcoma? That is what they said.
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
So, first question. The people will come in and go, I'm here because I also had their dog cancer. I go, what was it? And they said, well, I go, hemangiosarcoma. That was there. Yeah. They go, that was it. And it's usually sudden death, like you guys dealt with, because they have them leave.
And once they have it, it's done. There's not, everyone was giving me advice. That's it all. It's like, there it gets gone, and you told me, you're like, it's that, just cover.
And our dogs never had none of our loss. They're fearful, they want heal, afraid of thunder or lightning. They have no skin issues like so many dogs do today. Mm-hmm. They have always been healthy. I mean, we haven't needed to take them to a vet for any kind of symptomatology because they have none. I think about they have a shit.
My dogs ran behind me on a mountain bike. 20 miles sometimes. They were fit. Yeah. They were healthy. They ate raw until we did that.
Yeah.
Is that everything?
Well, there was nothing that happened until it happened.
Yeah, because I have nothing. They had those 4 days of symptoms. They just laid around. They were post beat and they weren't normal. They fired back, But to your point, oncogene was triggered.
Yeah.
And then it was just the clock was ticking, and bang, they just dropped it within 6 months of each other.
Yep.
And that pisses me off.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I lost my baby.
I know, and it happens every day. It's happening every day. Well, that's so sure. Yeah, it doesn't need to. No, it doesn't need to. It's hard.
So, because the one that we're talking about, the B here, what do people do?
Well,
because they'll say it, yeah, but I have to, right? And I don't
expect you to say not to do this, right? So I don't want to put you in that position, right?
Well, so every state is different. They all have their own state requirements. And years ago, there was developed a 3-year vaccine. And around that time, they were working on a 7-year vaccine because they knew that rabies vaccines lasted 7 years. But that's never made it to the forefront of the market. And that, again, has to do with the frequency of visits.
It's an eye every year.
They're doing it. That depends on the particular veterinarian or the veterinary clinic and their protocols. So every hospital establishes their own protocol, and it doesn't even have to be based on the state. That is their protocol. So it's like a hospital having their protocols for when you have your child at the hospital, of what type of decisions has to be made is based on their protocol at that particular place. And so what we've run into is that now we have corporate practices. And I was actually in the middle of veterinary medicine when I got to see these managers literally bragging. They were coming over from the corporate medical field and bragging about how they were bringing all of that over to the veterinary field. And that was a very scary time. I'll never forget thinking, what is going to happen? This was almost like probably 18 years ago, you know? And now slowly I've watched that. And even in my area, there are two of us, one standing, that are not bought out by corporate practices. And so they establish if it's a yearly or a 3-year. And or if you can do a titer based on if your pet has had autoimmune issues, if your pet should be able to have a titer.
Explain that titer.
And titer is measuring the antibody levels that the pet has to a particular virus. And so we can measure.
Meaning, if there's antibodies, why would you give them another BB?
Absolutely, because you have memory cells, and those memory cells make those antibodies, and those antibodies last in the body from 7 to 10 years. So they're there circulating on around, and they're not always out in the bloodstream. So sometimes a low titer doesn't mean you have a low antibody level. It means you haven't had any exposure.
Right.
You know, first of all, when I did some research on, and I can say it without the B word behind it, but I did research on rabies.
It's not what people think. Meaning, they will say it's because of the V schedules that does why we are almost eradicated it in this country. But when I looked at that, that wasn't true, right? You know what I'm saying? So what are the realities of this? Like, meaning it was more about, getting rid of rogue animals and things like that had to do with the V schedule. Let's talk about that, because people are afraid of this, of their dog getting this because of the fear that they created. But is the fear real, I guess, is the question.
And again, that would go back to wherever, they are located or live based on.
I get a third world country. That's what he said. That's what I learned, right? So a third world country, you have rabid animals.
Yes.
Like smaller animals. There are a lot of them around for different reasons, right? Because they don't kill them, they spread it amongst themselves. Is that happening in the United States? Is their question?
No. It's not that I've seen in my years of being a veterinarian. But what I will say that I have seen is still just the fear around that. And so different stories will pop up in different areas and be publicized. And I think you guys can understand this, right? And so it will become all of a sudden all over the media to put fear back into people, because it's also imply as people start waking up and realizing, hey, this is more detrimental, that risk to benefit ratio. As soon as that happens, we have a story that gets, blown out, and published. And so you're right. Do we have that fear? No, or do we have the risk? Not that I have seen in my experience. I'm going to speak from my.
Well, I didn't know. I started looking into it because I wanted to know the real numbers.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Third world countries, very different. What's happening in modern countries.
And what I found is that the drop of it has nothing to do with what has been given credit. Meaning it had everything to do with, if there's rabid animals around, eradicate. Yeah, that's how you rid of rabies, is you eradicate the rabid animal.
Absolutely.
That's the solution. It always has been.
Yes.
But they make it seem like they're Big Pharma's the hero, and it's not.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing if you get the flu. You stay home.
Yeah.
Yes, you gotta go outside, and he says you're.
Well, that's there, because if a dog gets rabies, they just die. Am I right on that?
If they get rabies, now again, it would depend on their immune system.
Okay, so let's say,
Yeah.
I don't know them. Yeah,
It actually has to do with the location where they're bit,
okay.
how it travels in their bloodstream, and does it reach the brain or blood-brain barrier?
Yeah, because that's past.
So if you have a rock star immune system, very nice, sincere, or if your pet.
Oh, thank you. So dogs actually a healthy dog that eats raw would actually survive rabies.
I would put a 90% chance on that.
Wow.
I can't say it because we haven't put it to the test.
Okay.
But let's
talk about another common, no, non-core vaccine, which is lepto.
What is lepto?
Lepto is a bacteria that can be found in murky water in certain areas. So in the southeast, it's very common in ponds. Dogs are dying out of. The vaccine that's given, though, contains 5 to 7 serovars that are not the most common that they're going to be exposed to. So it actually creates antibodies for them, but not against the actual ones that they're going to be exposed to. So it actually deal with Satsuba. Allison, that's so wins to that one, right? It is identical to the flu. Right. And if you got last year's flu vaccine, it's not going to possess you for this year, right? And so that's how leptome is. And what we talk about with our patients is if your dog is healthy and they are exposed to that bacteria, their immune system's going to take care of it. Now, that one would be coming in through the oral tract, right? So it's going to go in through the normal pathways, whereas rabies would come in through a bite. So different people would argue that, okay, it's in a bite, it's into the bloodstream. Yes, it's going to go through the blood-brain barrier. But again, we still have killer T cells, right? We still have army men on the forefront waiting to protect us as whatever is coming, right? And so,
Well, again, I would rather risk my dog dying of rabies than giving something that I know is leading to all of these conditions that we're seeing, even arthritis and all of it, we're seeing explode. And again, I think finding these links, they're there. This is real. So it's risk reward. So even if there is a risk of losing your dog, again, risk benefit.
They give freaking the same to your shoulders.
Totally. I can't not think about that comparison.
No.
It's exactly what's happening. And they just transferred it into the animal kingdom. Correct?
yeah, absolutely. And using fear, to usher in and to keep people in this cycle. And the pets are just, my daughter's damaged. My daughter's 9, and because she's grown up in Marshall, yes, she goes, but she can look at dogs and go, Mom, look, they don't feel good. Look, Mom, that one's head's hanging low. Mom, look, this one has eye discharge. This one, and she's looking at those symptoms of where she's noticed when they don't feel well because of what's in their body. They're walking around sick.
We just went through this, and you could tell the story. This is a big one that they pressure. I want you to talk about Parvo.
Oh, yes. We literally, in the last month or two, right, we've dealt with, answering,
some questions about this, the risk reward. Let's talk about that. But start with your story about Parvo.
It's the same one in Mexico. Okay. I'm back to look up the other information about the rabies vaccine that found it for me and sent me the articles. But she had puppy. Yeah. And a puppy ended up getting Parvo. And honestly, at that point, you take them to get treated.
Right.
And it was very touch and go. And I, of course, my heart broke for them. But I just said, there's a limitation here to what you should do and what you shouldn't do.
Right.
And we're going to pray.
Yeah, maybe. Absolutely.
but immediately we said, because the dog wasn't brought up on, he was brought with Kibble, and we switched it to raw.
Yeah.
Well, the dog,
The dog didn't survive.
I wanted to hear that far.
Yeah, but the dog didn't survive, and she switched the diet. And, the woman was like, you can send it back. Oh, once you have your puppy, you're not sending it back. You are the breeders. You are doing what you can to save it and trust that God will help you.
so what are the real risks around Parvo? I know it's very contagious.
Parvo is one of my specialties.
Let's hear all, because I know if people watch it, they're going to bring up this Parvo thing. So
It's very important to me because as a child, and I told you I wanted to be a vet since I was little, and different people would lose a puppy here or there to Parvo. It was very stressful. It was very, sad, and I was raised holistic, so I wasn't in that fear type of mentality. But going into vet school, you find out very quickly that it's a schedule thing, a fear that, like, oh my gosh, every puppy's going to get Parvo. And I actually did a lot of shelter work.
And in a shelter, these puppies are coming in and they vaccinate these puppies, okay? And the vaccinated puppies are getting Parvo 2 to 4 weeks after their first or second vaccine. Does that make any sense?
In the dots.
Yep. No, it doesn't. Because actually what was going on is the majority of these puppies were coming in. They're a little unhealthy at the time. They're giving them a very serious 5-in-1 vaccine usually. And their gut is having explosions. That's where leaky gut comes from, right? Because we're going to put 5 to 7 viruses into the bloodstream. Remember, we have 3 ways of natural, in 3 levels that the immune system's supposed to be exposed to a virus. So how are these puppies all of a sudden dying of bloody diarrhea?
You don't get viruses directly in their bloodstream.
Right, you bear, through our channels, that meets your IgM antibodies, and then it goes through this process.
That's right. And so I could see that a lot of these puppies were not only getting parvo, like reinfection from the vaccine themselves, because that can happen, not on my thigh, but also because their gut was so weak that when they got the vaccine, they had symptoms of parvo. So they were either euthanized or treated as if they had parvo when they really didn't. So in my own practice, what I have found with puppies is if they're on a kibble food, that creates what we call toxic biofilm. Yeah, which is why I love you guys, because you understand all of this stuff. All the puppy foods are laden with starches. Okay, and
Carnivore should not be.
Carnivores should not be eating starches. So they're laden with starches, and then they have hot proteins in Chinese medicine. That's called a yang vu. So it's lamb or chicken. So it's going to create heat in their gut, right? And then either they get a first puppy vaccine from the breeder, and that is going to set off that initial response that I was seeing in the shelter puppies. So some of those puppies look like they have parvo when they actually don't. And what you won't find is even some of them will test positive on the parvo test, but the literature has been removed that the vaccine can also make that test.
So should dogs not eat lamb or chicken?
Well, when they're puppies, that is a very what we call yang or hot food, and puppies usually have a lot of fire. So if we're pumping them full of fire and we're giving them chemicals that like the 5-in-1 that are creating more fire, they're going to have a fire explosion first.
Of like pop.
For most of the puppies, yes.
Because I noticed on a lot of, I think I'm on some, Barnadil, Volville groups, and even my breeder's page. And I've noticed that people say how sensitive and allergic Barnadules especially are to chicken.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if that's true, or is it more chanted towards your side?
Usually it's the beat. Yeah, the heat creates inflammation. Okay.
And it's already compromised because of their diet as it is, right? And now their gut is just spilling over.
Yes. And so if you have a toxic biofilm and you're a puppy, you are at risk of getting a virus if you're exposed to.
Okay, true. That is something. What's their next step? So they're taking chicken out of their diets, and their allergies or their symptoms, great. What else should they be mindful of, though? Because that's not really the solution. That's just.
Does he finish a Parvo story on that?
I don't think so. I would say go a little bit more into like Parvo. You're an itchy Parvo.
Yeah, we'll get to the diet. I just want to finish the spell with it. Because this is a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it's a big deal in our clinic, and so people come to us just in fear that their pet is going to be at risk of parvo.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep in mind that pets have maternal antibodies up until anywhere from 14 to 18 weeks. So when a person brings a pet to us,
the antibodies from mom
through the nursing, right? And so we immediately titer test. We like to know that level, and then we kind of monitor through that level. And then what we start doing them is just working on the gut health. And so we're keeping them off of starches, or if they were brought up on a starch diet, we get them off the starchy food, right? We get them off the kibble or the lamb and or the fried chicken.
And by the way, we're going to say this, and we're going to get to diet. A lot of the healthy foods now, it's just like they're selling as organic, this and that, but it's still starch. Okay. So just silly, and we'll get to that. But so we'll get them off of that stuff because that sets them up for the parvo.
That sets them up for toxic
Yeah. And that,
And the cancer farmers, yes. And that's going to make us have leaky gut, right? And so our immune system now is dysfunction. It's disabled, is how I like to tell. And so it's like if you have a disabled immune system and you come in contact with a virus, well, you're at risk of getting it. But what is, but again, it depends on your immune system of how it's going to take care of that virus. So at our clinic, we don't stress our clients or their puppies about the Parvo vaccine. Not at all. We work on gut health. We work on titer testing. And I like to tell people, they'll bring a new puppy in. Like, I don't want to put it on the ground. I hope we never had a Parvo case in our office. And I've never had one in our play. And so, those are things that I've been able to see over the last 12 years is like, there is a different way to do things. And as long as you have the compliance, and let me go back and say this about the traditional allopathic side of medicine, they set these protocols up because they do a herd type of treatment, right? They're seeing 50 people a day, sometimes maybe even more now. And so they are putting out a protocol that is like just a one for all. Everybody, want to make sure we're not making the situation worse. And that is where that protocol comes from. I do want to put that out there. But in our situation or with clients like you guys or, in a holistic practice, we're seeing people on a smaller scale.
right.
And we stepped away from that traditional side of medicine and wanted to go smaller scale, but that way we could help individually. But with something like this podcast, we're able to get that information out there even more, right? So now we can reach a greater population and people can start asking questions and start doing things different and talk to their vet about doing things different. And we always say, go and have a conversation. If your vet doesn't want to have that conversation with you, they're not angry. Time to find somebody that must have had the conversation.
Absolutely. This is the same conversation I have with parents, humans, about health. If you change their major premise about something, everything else changes and their life changes, right?
Yes.
So the major premise that I want people to hear that you just said, I want to just reiterate it for everyone listening, is everyone is running from the virus, the bacteria, the pathogen, right?
Yes.
We just talked about parasites, a heartworm. We talked about fleas and ticks, right? We just talked about viruses, right? Everyone's running from that and doing everything they can to avoid that. But what you just said is the way we live our life.
Mm-hmm.
We focus on the terrain.
Absolutely.
If you have a good terrain, and this is what was disproven, and is still yet running through modern medicine, is we kill, instead of saying, wait a minute, a good terrain, we fight these things off, and they're absolutely, we're not affected by it.
Right.
So again, it's the same with our pets.
Same.
If you feed them raw what they were meant to eat, not kibble, not starches, then their gut health is good. Their immune system is good. Their cells are good, and they deal with these things. That's why you haven't seen a Parvo death in your clinic.
Absolutely. I haven't even seen a Parvo positive.
Yeah, because you're educated. So I want everyone to hear that, not for it to go over their head. Because I know people are concerned about Parvo. I know people are concerned about rabies. I know people are concerned about fleas, ticks, parasites. But what we're saying is feed your dog the way it was meant to eat. Give your dog the same, the healthy things that we're talking about. And the outcome will be very different.
It will be very different. Yeah. And when I started my practice, I speak from an emergency veterinarian standpoint, and I tell my clients, I've seen the other side, right? So I know what it looks like at the end or in that emergency reaction to the ready or the chemicals. And my clients know this. If you have to go to the emergency clinic, I'm going to be upset. Because everything we're doing is what we call proactive instead of reactive medicine.
But I want people to, again, proactive, meaning we an effort into being healthy.
Yes.
Because here's what people are doing now. People are caught in between. This is where a lot of our friends are. Meaning, okay, they get it, but they're doing what the program is. The typical veterinary program, right? All the B's, all the big B, all the things, but then they're reaching over here to alternative for the symptoms of what this system is causing. So they're dabbling in the alternative to deal with the symptoms over here instead of saying, except maybe this philosophy is the damn problem, because you said something at the top of I knew I'm back to this. You're saying, I'm now treating the symptoms
They're just side effects.
Side effects of the, what would you call it? The side effects of the system or the system? Yeah.
Yeah.
Inside their protocol. That's what veterinary medicine has become.
Yeah.
Treating symptoms of this is, so let's not do it.
That so has human medicine.
No, no.
Yes.
This is such tough. Okay, so
Now I think let's get in.
Can I tell you a story that goes right with it? It was like just at the beginning. Well, this is a different one. I like Dolly Express, but this is a client that had been coming to my office since her puppy was 6 weeks old. It was a poodle. This is when I started really understanding that the poodle side of the doodle is where we're having a lot of issues. They tend to have a similar issue like an NTHFR anomaly, okay? And they don't handle chemicals at all. And so she brings me the 6-week-old puppy. We set her up with an appointment at the neurologist, even though I said it was likely a vaccine damage issue, but she still wanted to go and get a neuroconsult. The neuroconsult said, we don't understand what's going on with your puppy, but it looks like it's having a type of encephalitis, right? Which is a side effect of a vaccine reaction, right? And so
Immediately a brain inflammation.
brain inflammation. And so this client had not been holistic before. And so she said, I want to do everything that we can. So we said, we'll titer test only, no vaccines for her for the rest of her life. And one day, the dog is now 11 and she's a beautiful standard poodle. One day the lady comes running into my clinic and she just sits down on the bench and just starts crying. And so immediately, I'm thinking something's wrong with her dog. And I'm like, what is it? What's going on? And she's like, you never even believe this. And so she was out of town. A man walks up to her and says, I would love to pet your dog. She looks just like my dog. And I lost her to a sudden heart event, which would be hemangiosarcoma of the heart, right? And he had lost the dog by 2 years before. And so she goes, oh my gosh, yes, of course. They start talking. The dogs were litter mates from the same litter, several states away, where she is on vacation. And so she comes into my clinic crying, wanting me to run tests on her dog to see if her dog was about to have any issues. I said, well, we have been doing proactive medicine for her entire life. She's not going to have those issues. We don't have to fear the same things that this man just went through, right? Yeah. And so once she realized that, okay, she gathered herself and she was like, I didn't even realize, why I'm doing this. Because sometimes they have it and they're just like, help me. Yeah. And I'm teaching them proactive care, but they don't even understand. It's so they don't go through that type of issue at the end of life and have a sudden death, a sudden cancer. We're preventing that. And so I said, why do you think you've put in so much more effort? She feeds raw. She hunts in regularly for acupuncture. We do Sullivan's to balance her. I said, why do you think we've been doing that? And she said, I just thought we were keeping her healthy. I said, well, yes, we are. So she doesn't have the same genetic component that might show up that another litter babe might have or might not triggering the gene. And so that day, she and I both laughed after she realized, and come dog is doing fantastic,
Let's talk about this proactive care, because that's the argument we're making of how do you get your pet to live its whole life. Let them start there. How long should a dog typically live? I know the brands I'm sorry, but on average, what?
Well, at our clinic, we say we aim for 16 to 18. We're going for 20. I wish we 1-year-old dog in my office.
By the way, we do what kind of dogs were this? Big dogs. These dogs should do 50s. You'd think they'd die in 8 or 10. Okay, 20 years plus. How many? 4 dogs in you had? Oh, 20 years. You fed them all raw.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And
I'm sure he stayed away.
Oh, yeah, stayed away.
Yeah, on the top.
Exactly. Yeah, the 20-some years. I had one I was 23 years old.
I've ever seen a 21-year-old knock. Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, it's huge. But it's a blow. It should be a guy. And we set that all with our clients when they bring in puppies. I say, let's aim for 20 years. That's what I tell them all the time. Let's aim for 20 years. Let's do what we got to do. And we don't want 20 years of barely making it by, right? We want
somewhere between 14 and 20 years, you said.
Yes, absolutely.
That's probably a pretty typical goal.
Yes.
And that's all we're seeing today. Okay.
Yeah. What we're seeing today is
we had a 2-year-old dog with cancer last year. You know, we've had a 3-year-old dog with cancer. So now 8-year-old dogs used to be considered the geriatric age when I graduated from vet school in 2003. It used to be 10. Then it went to 8. Now it's on 6 around the ages. It's ridiculous and insane. So,
You know, but my friend made it to almost 15. Yeah, because he was so healthy. Again, he would have never had that if I didn't do it. I did mistake. You know, I learned a lesson there. But you know, it was the healthy eating that even got him that far. So there's a lot of controversy around feeding a dog raw in the veterinary world.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I don't understand why that is, because a carnivore in the wild eats meat. Okay, now they'll make yard meat, yes, but these animals have been refined.
Their GI tract has evolved or whatever you want.
Yeah. So if you make the argument here, I you know,
it comes from who funds the veterinary schools, and so the only dietary classes that are taught in veterinary school is by the largest veterinary prescription pet food company, and now there's actually 2 that are kind of in competition, but they are loaded in carbs in their foods. And the prescription diets are usually all carbs with minimal protein and or something that's been added to them to help with either increasing, you know, drinking and urination if it's urinary issues. Of course, all fiber for the ones that have intestinal problems or chronic pancreatitis. And so the reason why veterinarians are so afraid of raw is because go in and tell them that foundation that was given to them is not correct. You're putting a crack in the foundation, right?
yeah, we deal same thing with people.
And that will shatter their understanding and perception. And so it was an initial teaching in vet school, and I was called granola girl in vet school. But I will never forget raising my hand in that class and saying, I have never seen a dog walk through a cornfield and eat corn. And they were like, granola girl, we don't need any more out of you. No, it wasn't even a question that was answered.
We can't even say that the dogs evolved that because they're not the one anymore.
Okay, carnivores have a very short digestive tract, very high acid, meaning it's the same. It's meant for meat.
Meant for me.
Yeah, so where do they come up all of a sudden thinking they need a high carbohydrate diet? I still don't guess.
It's just a foundational teaching is where that came from. Through a company that runs and thrives through our field.
It helped me this to be
The cereal companies, we could say.
but like around this in vet school, okay? Yeah, I'm not saying this to put anyone down or anything. If I was sitting there, I'd be like, I'm not buying that.
Yes.
I mean, it's like lions, you know, I mean, all carnivores have a system to, you know, to digest meat and fat, etc., not carbohydrates. Excuse me, like professor, why is that changed? You know, my point is how are smart people buying into this? I don't get it.
Well, they talk about the genetics and how they're different. They're not wolves. They're not wild animals. And so this is the diet that works for them and prevents things like pancreatitis, you know, urinary issues with stones. But it's quite the opposite. I mean, it's the opposite, you know, but it's the same in the medical field, right? They tell you if you have calcium oxalate stones, stop drinking calcium.
Yeah.
But your calcium oxalate stones is because you're low in calcium, so your body pulls calcium from the bone.
That's right.
And it's so calcium balance. Absolutely. It affects the calcium balance. So it's the exact same thing in the veterinary medicine world. It's pretty much the opposite. And that's how I prep most of my clients when they come in. I go, I'm going to tell you probably the opposite of everything you've ever been told. Do you want that? Or if you don't, like if you don't, this might not be a good fit. This is like chiropractic. It is. I mean, chiropractor. This is chiropractor. It's the same thing. But it's the myths, right? That we have to break down for the myths because that's what keeps people tied in to the storyline. And so, you know, do you remember the whole grain-free debacle that came out a few years ago?
No.
That was said grain-free diets cause heart disease in dogs.
And this was referencing grain.
Did Big Kill put this out?
No, this was as well. Yeah, but absolutely they could, and now it's all been debunked. But it was enough to put a lot of these actually good kibble companies out of business. When they do is they sink their profit margins and they come in and buy them up. And so that'll happened and never say, oh, these dogs are getting dilated cardiomyopathy, when in fact, if they're getting dilated cardiomyopathy from the grain-free adjustments that had been made in the diet, such as lentils, then they would also have issues with the corn, the wheat, everything that's in the prescription diets. But nobody wanted to ask those questions. And still to this day, I have veterinarians in certain fields that we can't even refer to our patients over, because the first thing they tell them is, oh, you're on that grain-free food, or because you're going to get heart disease. And they don't even understand how debunked it's. Like
That's the problem. They put stuff out there and it's other people still think
it's this whole thing. It's true. And it's so sad. And so we have this place where we're just fighting against a system that controls everything, right? And so, but each of us care more than others to find out the truth. And we're willing to do what it takes. Willing to, the word is the research.
I mean, yeah, exactly. 3%ers actually go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me, right? Yeah, so obviously, debunking this whole food thing. Now, what's the reality? Like, when I first started feeding my dog raw, just giving them raw, then you say, well, animals in the wild, they'll still eat some roughage periodically. I try to find, because now there's all these raw food brands.
So, can we talk about the brands? Do you have preferences?
Sure. Yeah, I guess so the question I'm going to do kind of goes to that. What percentage should just be total meat, and what percentage of some roughage like they would in the grain or in the woods?
Well, with our clients, I mean, I tell them to do whole prey. And so whole prey diets are where you have the bone and the organ meats.
Yes, yeah, we do that.
And so that is the best raw that you can.
But then there's some roughage in there. It's like vegetable, not grain.
Well, usually the webbage is trite, which is the stomach lining from a.
So you want that idea about a shuttle in your.
Again, that will go back to the type of pet. So we will every now and again see a pet that does need fiber. And so in that situation, we'll say, add some pumpkin, give them a little bit of, pumpkin for that tupper. So you heard tuppers, yeah, they get titer pumpkin. Bakes, savory has a fair. What you mean, bitch? It has pumpkin, and that you know who needs those the most are the small dogs, the little guys. So your baby Yeki would do well with yeah. And so I tell our clients, there's no one food that fits every pet. Oh my gosh, dog Pancho. I would take him to the emergency clinic with me. This is how I gotten. Now calls him a terrier dactyl, and he would lay in the middle of the emergency room floor. Just like this. And I promise you, it was to change the environment of that room and to let those dogs know, you're fine. My mom's here. They're going to be okay. And I loved it. He would just lay at these little triage, and he's laying on his back, all four legs up like that. That's how it is.
So
he has easy.
We were talking about, the small dog, you might need a little more roughage.
Yes.
I don't, my question is why is that? And I'm just,
Well,
this topic has been so heated with me, in the sense of I just want to give them exactly what's best.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you something that Dr. Shea at the Chi University has always said when he's teaching any class whatsoever, because I say this to everybody. It depends. So it depends on the pet. It will depend on the breed, and it depends on what we call their predominant body characteristic or element. So are they predominantly, and we do this with all of our clients when they come in, is your dog predominantly fire? Is it earth? Is it blood? Is it metal? Or is it water? This is Sunny formula is Joshua Ray. Yes, he's bio. We like it. And so when they're fire, okay, so if they have a lot of fire, you want to determine, okay, is the fire predominantly in the stomach? Is it in the heart? Is it in the intestines? And so that can help you to understand what proteins to feed if you just want to feed raw and you don't want to add the roughage, because the protein that we're feeding might be affecting that particular element. Right. And so they may need roughage. If they had an earth component, which probably does because we're laying on our back in the middle of a talk, so we have a fire earth, they do need roughage. And you know why?
because they need lymphatic movement. Because raw is considered cold in Chinese medicine. Like it's actually, because it's in its raw form, it's considered cold. Okay. And so over time, it can slow down a digestive tract. And so giving it some roughage will help move. That makes sense for him just based on what we know about how we say sometimes we feel like he's constipated. Oh, yes. She's super regular, but he tends to be, right? He'll be bad with the walk. He can go outside and just put. And he'll use better well, some vets. We have to move to make those. So he would do bad with some roughage. Would he also do that the pumpkin? Maybe as a little bit of pumpkin. But also, like you said, if you don't want to do that, whopping you. Yeah, it's good. Increase that.
Now, she thinks that television is 100% real life. It's heaven. I mean, she does. She might watch, if there's a dog on TV,
She goes. She'll watch a 2-hour show waiting for a dog.
oh, yeah. Yeah, she's super, we say she's super smart. She's either super smart or just, super determined, very intuitive. Yeah, she's a really, they're both amazing, but fight. So I'm curious,
So fire is intuitive. But I'm going to tell you, the majority of doodles, fire earths, which is why I wrote the book I was telling you, The Happiest Doodle on the Wall.
Where can I get?
Well, right, going to get it online. It will be on holisticpetreset.com. So that's that's the book. Holistic Pet Reset. So, but I wrote that book because I was seeing exactly what you're talking about with the doodles, them being different, one being more fire, one being more earth. They're very rarely water, metal, some are wood, but the clients need to understand that there's a certain way they can treat them, certain foods they can feed them, and in a way that they can take care of them that's going to help keep those elements happy.
But never grains, never starches. We're talking about, things that roughage they could find in nature. That's correct. So just, they're not eating grain. I just want people to hear that's not the roughage.
That is not the roughage. Yeah. Grains actually cause a lot of stagnation, not only as we talked about in the gut, right, because of the leaky gut, but in the liver as well. And so we do not push grains in our clinic. No, we have a lot of people that sometimes want to do some kibble because they can't afford doing all the volunteer. Or we also do home cooked foods as well at our clinic. Again, it depends on the type of pet. And so in that situation, we help them find a high protein, minimally starch kibble, the best.
How's wrong with farmer's dog? People, because that's a cook. It's not raw.
That is cooked.
But it's not great either.
Well, it's not grains, so it's either white potatoes, sweet potatoes. The beef does have lentils, so those are considered grains.
I'm not a fan. But there's
Didn't on TV. Oh, yeah. They're on TV, but didn't your dad's
Debbie that was her step to get away from kibble.
But they just,
and it's probably a tried intermediary step. Would it be fake?
It's a great step. When farmer's dog first came out, they were very high protein oriented, but over the years it has become heavier carbs in their food. Why? Costly. And so we actually, for home cooked, we recommend a company called Braised Rye, and they do 2% carbs are in their food. Well, identical. Kind of is a healthy milk commercial in states commercial rates. It's okay. It's likely cooked.
So I was going to say, so what's the difference of cooked? We give our dogs raw. Yeah, and again, we buy some of the
price are raw. I don't buy tapas as much anymore. I did for a bit off and on. I let you rotate dates. I sometimes I don't even do solid chews anymore. I first did Ryan was gotten more. Primal was buying more, and they should.
Every time things get bought out, it goes down.
So excellent. Yeah. So there's OC Raw. Yes, there's that is a good move. What's the one we're using now? Oh, C's real food. Yeah, but that's a good pet sounds away. Darwin's is good. I hasn't heard of that. We were always big primal still should ask for flex to buy because
we have to wait from this chair.
They've been sold, and so that affects.
And by the way, I don't give them ones with fish oil with it because I tell people, fish oil is rinsing. It is. So I'm not giving them like dogs. So I avoid all the fish oil.
Yeah.
And it's hard though to find that food without fish.
I know.
on it.
Yeah, I know it's so
And in that situation, you can order whole prey diets online. There's companies like Raw Feed, Miami, and you could order like literally tubs, and they'll have the whole prey there.
So just to review, I'm always thinking with the Viking. What are your favorites?
For raw,
Yeah.
so our favorites for raw is I usually tell people to do the whole prey. So I ask them to, is that the brand? So well, whole prey is where the cake go.
The bone.
Yeah,
But what companies?
Well, there's one called Raw Miami where you can actually order tubs. So yeah, you should order the tubs, and so you keep them frozen. And then we also like Darwin's, Steve's Real Food. Primal, we're still, in between. But also bring Juju is almost stop the market. Yeah. We were big Answers people, but some things changed. Answers was a company that brought raw to the market for overgrown medicine. But again, they sold and shifted a lot of things. And so they're not at our top,
Okay, so that I prefer raw, but what about cooked? And you said slightly cooked.
Well, again, so in my practice, we say anywhere from 3 months to 6 years, maybe 8 years, are wonderful candidates for all. Okay, so because they have a strong gut.
3 months to what?
3 months to 6 to 8 years. And that's in the general population. In our practice, dogs go 12 to 14 years on raw. But in Chinese medicine, we talk about raw being that cold that we drumming about. And so as a pet ages, gut motility slows down. And so sometimes they need it gently cooked because that's going to help.
Because they lack.
Absolutely. We have found dogs that are 10 and 11, 12 at our clinic that eat raw. Sometimes in the winter when it gets really cold and damp, we have the owners lightly sear their food because it's warming on their digestive tract, and our digestive should have a fire, right? Yeah. So it should be a fire in our gut. And so sometimes their fire diminishes. And so they do better that way.
I just thought of something because I teach for humans diet variation, switching the diet, right? So we rotate the foods, we rotate from, beef, lamb. Yeah, we rotate.
They were you with a raw egg on your food. See, so by the
Become as big as go like fam lamb at the raw vipnol and just add a little bit on top. Just get with it, Bob vipnol.
So what about seasonally? Like, you know what I mean? I eat a little different the winter than I do the sun, spring, maybe for animals.
That's what we
So maybe in the winter you go with a little more heat?
Yes.
Or is this it opposite?
No, you would go with lamb, venison. Also, I'm trying to think what you might be able to get here. I think ostriches in Atlanta. A lot of people wouldn't buy ostrich and emu, but for raw. But you want to go with those warming. I wouldn't if you had to do chicken or a fowl. That would be the time to do it. Elk would also be good in the winter here. And then when we get into the cooler months, that's when we look at beef. We do some pork. I'm not a big.
For me, the summer months, then we would
go summer months. We would go into the more neutral to cooling foods. So that would be beef. Rabbit is my favorite. Turkey is, this and your expensive favorite. Airlines, that comes to mind. Absolutely. And so you want to go with more cooling foods. And going back to the cooked foods that we were talking about, our clients do rotate those as well. And those are a little bit easier to rotate because we can include pork in there. And pork is actually a cooling food. And pork is a gene tonic in Chinese medicine. So even if we don't love pork as humans, it can be great for an elderly pet or one that he's had a lot of weak immune system there. So we'll use it for that. And actually certain breeds do that. I do buy pork, beef, a lot, lamb. They don't like venison. I don't buy chicken very often. They not like the venison because it's the hottest of the ones that are feed. So if they're fired, they may anxious as they're fired, all right. Yeah, they're fired. Yeah. So
let's get in a little bit of what to do when, right? And our dogs don't have issues. I mean, one time this one started licking his paws. I think you sent us some things. It worked.
homeopathic.
Yeah. So let's. The top conditions that people complain of, right? So let's
pause.
So let's hit those of what to do.
Is that an allergy or a need or a parasite, or is it
I say, is it front feet or is it back feet? Is that actually to bag and
And if like that happens.
so most of the time licking their paws is going to be related to a gallbladder issue. So they might be getting, depends on the season, right? So if they're getting a lot of raw and it's cold out and they haven't been moving as much, the lymphatics aren't moving, we'll get something that's called like a dampness in the gallbladder. And one of the things they'll do is their own acupuncture on themselves. So they're actually rooming acupuncture points that come out through the toes. I mean, first thing to do, one of the first things I do when I see a pet is I look for saliva stains because I know that they're intuitive enough to know what channels need to be open. Front paws is oftentimes related to digestive enzymes themselves, or maybe it's the gut motility. A
little bit of pump in for that.
Get to go back to that. Yeah, absolutely. And also with the flea and tick chemicals that we were talking about, that is the number one issue that we see other than serious side effects. And we guys, right, you're not doing that, but it causes something called gallbladder dampete, which is where I started putting this picture together, about a decade ago, watching these dogs, and they are always hemming in, licking their paws. They always have chronic ear infection, especially in the left ear, and they always have gallbladder issues. And so,
What do you send them? What do you?
well, so I actually have.
Because you do a lot of stuff virtual. So, by the way, people can go to your site and you do a lot of stuff virtual now, right?
I do. And we actually have a paw treatment kit and we have an air treatment.
No,
Back paw would be where gallbladder. Okay. And then actually we can look at the right and the left, and that would help us determine other factors as well. So, but we might have, is that interesting? And of course, depending on where a person lives, if they're walking outside and coming in and licking their paws, that's either an allergy to the grass or it could be irritation from kind of something that's been sprayed or
let's quickly address the fact that people might care a lot about their health, their dogs, obviously their pets. However, they're still getting their home sprayed outside, inside for rabies, pests, bugs, and different insecticide.
And what is our skin? It's the largest organ, right? And so the little paw, their paws are on that surface. They come in, they groom them, so they're getting them through their skin, and then they're
so there are natural. We have one, and we use a natural pest control company.
There's so many,
and there are so many. Loxy's on my issues, and they, I do think they're national. But anyway, there are others because we've recently moved and we've had people knock on our doors and tell us that they do use essential oils, essentially.
Yeah,
it's what they're using. But I think it's so important to pay attention to what you're putting in your home apps, not just for your kids, but also for your pets. So, and the size of the head is a factor as well. If you have a little animal, it's going to, the concentration?
It's going to be a lot higher concentration. Yeah. But as you and I were talking earlier, I've also had people bragging to me that they no longer spray their yard. They're watching the chemicals in their home. They're changing the diet. But then when I say, well, what flea and tick medicine are you using? And they're giving an oral pesticide every month.
It literally is a pesticide that you're giving. We are talking about that.
Yes.
Decimating health.
Decimating the health. So good. Or, you've got some people that are being so careful about it on the outside and not even realizing what they're giving into safe. And then so when you wake them up to that, their faces are just like, I never thought that, right?
Well,
because it's not.
They say this to the vet. Is it safe? And your vet says,
yes.
Yes.
And their dogs are sneezing. There are so many dogs with seizures. I saw this one situation. I don't know what happened, but someone left their Bernedoodle with a sitter while they went on vacation for 2 weeks. They came back. That dog's tail was raw. I only had the tip. It was at 2 months later. It had the tip of it was back, but the dog is still having anxiety. I don't know what happened to that dog, but
a lot of times pet sitters and or facilities will give oral flea and tick meds not thinking that they're detrimental or dangerous. And so sometimes that happens. I always tell our clients,
check wherever you're going to board your pet, make sure that they understand that's not okay with you, so that you're not ashamed. It's the only sweet thing to your pet about your consent.
So let's go back to the checklist because okay, Paul, like some of the top other problems that people are seeing and you're seeing in their dogs.
Allergies.
Say, what do they do? Well, change your diet. Okay,
Start the diet. But do you know what I tell clients when they come in with allergies? Allergies is just the same symptoms as cancer. We haven't reached that cancer level because in Chinese medicine, most allergies are a liver blood deficiency and what we call a spleen sheath deficiency with damp or phlegm excess. And that is usually the pattern for cancer. So isn't that interesting? Because these pets.
Well, and it's an immune problem. Hypoimmunity.
Absolutely. And immune confusion, right? So it's immune confusion. And so these pets are coming in. I personally enjoy, and you can understand this because you're a chiropractor, and I do acupuncture. I like musculoskeletal disease because I'm like, bring me in. I like hips, I like backs, I like knees, and I love internal medicine. That's my other passion. But 90% of what I see are allergies. And these allergies are because they have a dysfunctional immune system because of what's being given to them on a regular basis. And so that can be dermatitis of all types. Most of the times, like it's in their groin or their abdomen. Again, that goes back to the gallbladder and or the pancreas, chewing their paws, ear infections. We had dogs come in with no hair. It's like, and they're like, oh, I had someone recently go, oh, they've been like this for 8 years. I go, well, that's not normal. That's not okay.
I know the first thing you're going to do is say, change the diet. Those on raw carnivore diet, right? So,
well, my first thing is a detox.
yeah, no, I mean, it's not even talking about that. That's how you found me.
Yeah,
exactly. You use some of my products that I use in humans.
Absolutely.
In your detox.
In my protocol, because when I found you, I had actually been through 3 years of long haul COVID. And so I'd gotten COVID because I didn't shut my clinic down and I refused to. And then not knowing I was going to lose my husband. And so after I got long haul COVID, I lost my husband and my cortisol levels went through the roof. And I am a supplement person. Okay. And as we talk about, just like you guys are, I'm in that, 1 to 3%. Yeah. And I could not get over the cyclical issue of reinfection. And you were talking about receptors
response.
Absolutely. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's exactly what's missing with me. And once I took your program and started taking your supplements, I said, that's what's missing in most of my patients that I'm unable to get over the hump, right? And so it goes back to those cellular receptors that they have, and before giving them the right foods and the right supplements, it has to still go into the cell.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so we got to have that cellular receptors working normally. So yes, I have brought your supplements over and my clients are thrilled. The patients are thriving and like not even knowing sometimes that I have been part of your program of bringing in your supplements. I'll have clients come in and say, I just finished the Pompa program, or I'm in the Detox sauce, or I'm always like, that's awesome. That is a real because we really just like created this also cool little niche of clients that are understanding that health is so key and detoxification is key, and of course diet.
Well, that's why I want to bring your program in within my program because we have all these people now who go, okay, this is good for my pet, but it's like, how do I do that? And I'm very cautious. I'm not a veterinarian. I don't want to make those recommendations. I have to be careful, right? So, but you can. So and yet I'm getting all these questions about pets. So, we have to do a training for our coaches, my doctors, right? We have you all set up for that. And, so a lot of the same things apply. Real detox happens at the cell. When we get the cell working again, now these things start coming out, the allergies go away. What's it we're seeing humans?
Same thing. But you're right. You start there. We edit the diet. It's like we have to share these staples. And I've even had holistic vets that, and we do it too. When we're going to schedule a client, one of the first questions we ask them is, are you okay with us talking to you about adjusting the diet? Because if they're not, then it's not so take us wrong.
Yeah. I always say this to the human side. the perfect diet won't get people well today like you used to. 20 years ago, change someone's diet, they lose weight, they feel better, all as well. Today, you have to change the diet just to get to the next step.
Just to get to
Yeah,
inflation.
exactly. And then you have to get to the toxins, it's dry inflammation. So it's like, okay, you may not get well without changing your diet, but you have to detox.
Right, absolutely. And I'm an herbalist. I was an herbalist at heart, and I even say this: the herbs that we originally would try to give, they're not even effective. Because if the cell isn't working,
You can't get them in the cell. Yeah.
then we're just the herb.
And by the way, my product like Cellular Solutions, it was designed
knowing that people can't get even nutrition through their gut, let alone into their cell, an inflamed cell. So like that mushroom technology where we pull in the wild, mushrooms pull up ingredients and become deliberate. Animals know that. They'll eat the mushrooms when they're sick and pull up the things that they need at cellular.
Oh, I believe that. Absolutely.
That's
If you have clients to come to me and say, my dog was eating so-and-so in the yard, I always say, bring it to me.
Yeah.
I need to know, because they're smart enough to know what they need. And of course, at that cellular levels, those are really sore dogs. But that's like it was all there.
Folks have access to mushrooms in the wild. I would call it the wild animals, but
we're able to give those delivery systems that mushrooms deliver those things in inflamed cells.
When your dog does gravitate toward grass on occasion, what is that?
Okay, so if they gravitate towards grass, it could be the fiber that we're talking about. So just being
they know they keep stuff.
And I'm going to say, I always say, watch them. And if they're grazing and they don't throw it up, that was fiber. Yeah. If they eat it,
Right. And I don't like to let them eat it because I don't have someone scrape it. Right.
and then you have to worry about that.
Right. So wait, if it's at my yard, and if it's at my yard over here, because it's not quite yet finished being landscaped, but there's a few like little shrubs. And when I say little, like they're new. So, and it surprises me. So go ahead, she'll try to, yes, like the grass.
So sometimes they're chewing on bark because it's a fiber. Stitch is going to help her. I see that. Do you think Yankees pumpkin? Low board. And I tell clients to say, watch what they're eating and let them eat it. If they throw it up, then that was stomach fire.
Okay.
And their stomach is off. So they're going to need some stomach support. And if they know to do that to help them to vomit, either they eaten something or they're nauseated or their stomach, they got gastritis. So for that. But always watch and see what they're eating. And I let them graze. Yeah, but again, I'm in my yard. Right. We spray.
No, I don't. We let them graze unless we don't let the
Grills work right.
Yeah.
How much to graze on. Yeah. But you can graze, so you chew in the bark, that's okay. Yeah. Okay. The leaves. Yeah. It's no. But I think there's such a need for people now that we were talking about waking up from 2020.
Yes.
Right. We are having clients come in and they are now going, I want to revamp my whole household.
Yeah.
And they want to do it front to back with themselves. Yeah. With their children, with their pets. And when they come in, they make me the happiest of anybody you could ever imagine, because I know now we say every person needs to reach the end of themselves, right? You have to reach the end of what you thought you knew before you can really learn something else. And so when they come in, I know they're ready to learn. They want to see, what can we do differently? And that's when we've been incorporating, your boyfriend too. He comes over and be like, that's encouraging. But no, it's all, especially when we see how do people work. That was astounding. That was shocking. It was shocking.
Well, the good thing came out of that, they duped the world, right? But what's come out of it is an awakening. People don't trust big pharma, big food, big kibble, it's people are woken up.
And we started to ask questions.
Absolutely.
It's at us that we ask questions.
Because I know the media is not exposing a lot of what big lies were, but it's on the street. And they can't hide it anymore. How many people were damaged from the big V? How many people were,
dropped over?
Yeah, literally. And those numbers will always be squashed because it's not being attributed to it. But the talk is, it's all like, I never felt well since. I have not since, right?
Or they know someone who lost a child, see those sudden death. We're seeing athletes
die on a basketball floor, court. And it's not okay. So yeah, you're right. Word of mouth, people know someone that it's happened to.
Let me tell you something. I'm blessed to be in a group right now where the best studies right now in the world of this group in Europe. A lot of them studies come from India, what they're doing. And I'm blown away by this research. And right now in the US, they haven't even brought it yet. I'm the first group that they're working in within the US, just, on some of the protocols that they're doing, but it's called spike protein persistence, meaning the immune system is continually producing it. And,
COVID, that person.
Yeah, COVID, and this is happening, unfortunately, even the people who didn't get the V. It more definitely the people who got it, but this was a man-made virus, and the immune system had no idea what to do with it.
No,
and it's really shocked the system of humanity.
I was in a cyclical, I could time it, a 3-month virus. I would all of a sudden get sick again at 3 months. Oh, this went on for 3 years. And my dad, he and I both had the Delta right at the same time. We got it. He blames me for getting it. Someone came in my clinic because I did close it down.
Well, the best way to have this is by naturally building up immunity. That's
which I agree, and he agrees. Yeah, he was the same way, but he felt like he's like, because I kept my clinic over there, and so I was exposed to it. Then he had it, and then one of the girls that works with me, her dad. We all got the Delta right around the same time, and we were in a cyclical 3-month. We could time it. We'd say, "How do you feel?" Now I've got congestion. Now I've got this. Oh, here it goes back into my lungs, and I knew it was a spike protein persistence. And then when you started talking about how the spike proteins and the virus itself was designed to affect those cell receptors, as soon as you said it, I just saw my cells in there, and I was like, "That's what's happened." Yeah. And it. I haven't been sick since, I still take those supplements, but since doing your program last year, I will get sick. And I was not a person that ever got sick. But after getting that Delta, I literally became afraid of people that were sick. I feel like, I felt like it.
I go through that, right? Yeah. I tell you, it really decimated the immune system of so many, and for different reasons that.
And there's a lot of you were able to do the program, right? And that changed a bit. There's so many of you out there that are still struggling. Sit. And then what's happening is their body is still producing spike proteins, driving inflammation. Here's what they see. They see this 3 stages. The stage 1, you get dysautonomia, meaning, the weird anxiety, brain fog, all that weird symptoms affecting the thyroid. And then stage 2 is a deeper level of weird autoimmunity and mast cell activation and all kinds of weird senses. Stage 3, unfortunately, is turbo cancers. And it's like people are going through these phases, and it's because the spike protein persistence, and this isn't my research, this is theirs.
And I'm blown away, by what they're finding. And, they're finding it in the mucous membranes.
Back here, the cribriform plate where it's crossing the blood-brain barrier, if people are in massive brain fog and like, what the heck happened to me? Can't figure it out. All the mast cell activation, more sensitive to this and wondering what's going on. And then neurological symptoms that people never had before, all of it because of these spike proteins.
We're hearing more about POTS than we've ever.
That's the dysautonomia.
That's the dysautonomia, absolutely. And so first question is, did you get the Well, Mary Lee will like this, fit it. But I actually had God go in and do surgery and remove the mRNA that was triggering I saw the spike protein in there. And I said, but you do surgery on me and remove that spike protein out of my mRNA. And so maybe that's part.
That's through prayer. So it's a lot.
And I did that.
Because you have nothing.
Because I'm a surgeon, I know what that would look like. And so I sat with God, one day and prayed through that. And then I told my dad the same thing while I said, Dad, you've got to go in after we've healed the cells. You've got to go in and get that spike protein out. I could see it attached to putting that code in that mRNA, and mRNA just making virus.
Right now, there's a test. It's not yet released in the U.S. It's going to be with probably another year, unfortunately. But right now, we're only measuring antibodies, which is not quite accurate. What's the Peter McCullough? They talk about this test, but it's not perfect because when you're measuring this, you could have someone in a bolstered immunity form a lot of antibodies and not get sick, but some people not. But anyways, that's the only test we have for spike proteins. Not great, but there's a new spike protein test that's actually looking at the spike protein. And when that comes out here, it's going to change a lot of things because people are going to go, oh my gosh, like we just took the test because we're in the experimental group.
I would love to see that for pets. We had pets.
I would
you mean stories. So spike protein.
I would connect you to them.
That would
And
be awesome.
because they have a second group in this group, and they like practitioners and doctors. So I would connect you to them because
If Mike used to see how the animals are reacting. Oh, we had people come in with all kinds of stories. And in fact, we just lost a sweet patient to brain cancer, and none of her symptoms started until her parents got the vaccine. We're talking about pet carrots or pet carrots. Yeah. And I did a bioscan on her, which is a bioenergetic resonance scan, and she had everything that looked like spike proteins. And so I treated her just like I would a detox, trying to flush her system out. And just a few years later, brain cancer, like you talked about, like the turbo cancers, but she started having seizures. I think it was 2 years after that. But I saw a lot of where I tell them, did you get it? And they're like, yeah, I think this is a spike protein fraction. There's no other explanation. You know, your pet was perfectly healthy. They're in your home. Oh, I had children where the client's mom got the vaccine, and the dog always stayed with her, and she brought it in, and we were having symptoms of spike protein issues. In fact, it went into almost kidney failure suddenly. And this is a dog I've been, knowing very well, taking care of, no chemicals, nothing, but being around that person during that time.
I didn't shed. I will say I didn't believe in shedding. I'm a skeptic by nature. You have to understand.
Yeah.
Steve, it doesn't prove something. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, there was enough.
Like that does seem like it might shed, right? And I was always looking, but I was kind of in that in between world. Now, being with this group and looking at the research, shedding is a real thing. As a matter of fact, they are finding in the non-V group, some people actually have, because there's 2 spike proteins, they can tell the people who are V'd versus not. By the group that's not has 1 spike protein. The group that does has 2 types. I don't remember the name of the one that you only developed from the vaccine. But now, in some people, they're finding the both.
Because you know that when they put that out there, their goal was to vaccinate the non-vaccinated community.
Yeah.
And they didn't bring that out till later and said, we're going to come up with one that's... We're still saying that. They're still saying that. I truly believe that's what that virus was designed to do. And vaccinate me, not to make us immune.
Well, definitely is.
Not to make us immune protected.
Josh, you got a lot of work down there. We'll fix it all. Yeah, before.
I figured, we're going, it's all right. It's good to talk about it. Because it's...
No, this shit, you can haircuts. Yeah, people need this stuff.
Yes, and it's important.
Yeah.
And people they're overlooking things that, might need to be attributed in order to what
You're waking up there, big girl.
what they're not considering as a possibility. What we made of it, because a lot of people think I wasn't, so I'm good, and that's not that simple. That's fine. I mean, it's that great. It's great. Don't get me wrong, because imagine the complications that you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Natalie, let me give you the last word on, I don't know, I don't want to miss anything. What does somebody need to know to keep their pet healthy, avoid these, deaths, diseases that are prevalent?
Well, it's what you say. Remove the toxins.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing that we say at our office is remove the toxins. I have clients that found me 12 years ago when I just moved back from, Colorado or out west, and they did nothing but remove toxins from seeing me. And I see them 10 years later and their pets look fantastic.
Right.
And a lot of them changed diet.
That's just for so after and water. Don't give your kids city water,
Right.
regular water.
But even the ones that haven't changed their diet, what they remove those regular chemicals and doing the protocols that are the
corporate practices are recommending, they have a healthier pet. So that's key. Diet is key. And detoxing is key. And then bringing your formula over to help them with their cellular receptors is also key.
Yeah.
And because we are now finding, and I've been watching this for 10 years doing bioscans, even though I don't have the testing that we have for people in it, pets do have NTHFR issues. And I see that on these stands. And so I treat them that way. And when I treat them as if they have this THFR gene anomaly, they thrive.
We assume everybody that we deal with has stress there. Right.
I do as well, because they're coming to us for something that's gone.
Methylation responds to physical, chemical, or emotional stress. Being that methylation pathway is how you turn on the stress response and how you turn it off. So whether someone has a SNP on the gene or not, when that pathway is stressed, you don't have cellular detox that's normal. It parallels glutathione in your cell, and that's how your cells get rid of toxins, right? That's how you get rid of toxic hormones. That's how you turn on energy pathways. So if you're stressed, physically, chemical, emotional, yep, you have some issues.
Absolutely.
Those pathways.
And what's going to stress them?
Yeah.
The solitize, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Remove the interference. It's the way we live our life. The body heals. Your pets are no different.
Awesome.
Listen, I want people to share and like this, because that's how you spread the message. This message needs to be spread and talked about. That was great information. You know, the fact that pets are dying unnecessarily, the fact that the big C is going through the roof, and all of these conditions that our pets are dealing with, it's not normal. It's absolutely common, but it's not normal. And if people see the show, then there's something they can do about it. So please share, because people love their pets as they do the children.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So another amazing episode. Thank you, Dr. Natalie. What a wealth of knowledge. And thank you. You should always bring your fun words.
I need to get that picture. Where's he?
Yeah, everyone's better, but
Yeah.
that's the tree, and Dr. Parvo, like you share.